I'm going to hand you over now to Solange from Badoo. Really excited to have this talk, talking about going beyond paid social and search. So please give her a big app promotion summit, working from home. Welcome to the virtual stage. Over to you.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here today. Big thanks to the App Promotion Summit team for making this possible, even in these difficult times. I'm Solange Baki. I'm the Growth Marketing Manager leading user acquisition through third-party networks at Badoo. I'm here to talk to you about the role of third-party networks in user acquisition, with the aim to encourage marketers to explore the benefits of testing beyond paid social and search. A little bit about Badoo, for those of you who don't know who we are. Badoo was launched in 2006 and is the dating app that encourages its users to date honestly. We operate in 190 countries and is available in 48 different languages, making it the world's most widely used dating network with 450 million users. Badoo is a freemium service which offers additional premium subscription to users. Badoo is part of the Magic Lab group, which includes Bumble, Lumen, and Chappy. Our marketing team is led by our CMO, Dominic Galello, and structured in teams of brand managers, comms creatives, research, organic, and my team paid acquisition. Now moving into how a paid acquisition portfolio normally looks like in an app company, you'll find the majority of the spend being allocated to paid search and paid social. This can obviously vary depending on your app, on the app you're promoting and your business goals, but we can certainly say that these two channels represent most of the paid acquisition mix. And then last, if so, you can find third-party networks. But why is this? Why do paid search and social represent most of the paid acquisition portfolio mix? On one hand, paid social, with its bigger player being Facebook, has unique targeting capabilities considering all the data they have access to. And paid search with Google is one of the eldest advertising channels that offers great volumes and access to an audience who is already interested in your product or vertical. This is just mentioning some of the strength from these two channels, from many more. However, I believe that adding third-party networks to your paid acquisition strategy unlocks new ways to access to your audience. Therefore, I would like to present a case study showcasing how we maximize the benefits of third-party networks. But first, what are third-party networks? The way I would describe it to someone who is new to the industry would probably be they are everything that is not paid search or social. For instance, with third-party networks, you can access to original equipment manufacturer placements where your app gets promoted within the device's interface. You can also access to all available formats of in-app ads through programmatic buying or affiliates. There are video networks with a highly engaged audience, CPI influencer networks, and many more. Comparison sites, meme pages networks, native content, networks offering pre-installed technology. What makes third-party networks unique is that they offer new channels to reach your audience and be present at different stages of the user journey. Now, let's quickly go through the most common user acquisition KPIs. First, we have the actual acquisition. It can be install, registration, or that in-app event that matters to you. Then we got return on ad spend without any particular order of priority. And retention. In the dating app scenario, we've got a fourth KPI and possibly the most challenging one for my account, which is maintaining the female-male ratio. In dating, and especially at Badoo, we want to ensure that there is a well-balanced gender environment. Due to Gender targeting limitations in third-party networks, it can be a challenge to drive registrations from a specific gender. And it's like pulling a string. They are linked to each other. So once you pull one, it might affect your other KPIs. So now, considering and taking into account that we have the challenge of hitting few metrics, this is what we have achieved in the third-party networks account over the course of a year. We increased registrations by 55%, female registrations by 75% until the point of achieving that balance between genders. One-day retained users by 60%, and revenue by 30%. So now this is how this growth looks on a month-by-month basis from February 2019 to February 2020. As you can see, there are ups and downs month by month, but in general, we can see there is a clear increasing trend in all of the graphs. But most importantly, we managed to increase all these KPIs without a significant change in spend. So the question is, how did we increase these results without increasing spend? So of course, it's important to say that there is always ongoing cross optimizations, cross platforms, cross markets, A/B tests, and an incredible product team working on constantly making improvements to the app. And all this have influence on these positive results. However, there is one key factor in the achievements of these results: understanding each source's capabilities. When understanding each source's capabilities, you will be able to choose one metric to optimize by source, based, of course, on their strength and their technology to optimize. This way, you won't expect one source to hit all your 3 or 4 KPIs. I've seen in some cases in which we continue optimizing one source or network. It can be source or network, is the same. Expecting it to achieve all our KPIs. Well, the advantage of third-party networks is that they can complement each other by optimizing towards different metrics. In this example, we can see that source or network 4 is doing a great job in driving female registrations, which is clearly the event that it's optimizing against, but it's not really focused in driving revenue, for example. While source 1 is the main driver of one-day retained users, although we can see that they are all contributing to the achievement of this goal. And source 3 is clearly optimizing towards revenue. Then we see that source 2 is not really strongly contributing to any metrics, hence we can assume that this is still on a testing period. In this example, I simplify it by just using 4 sources and 3 metrics to make it easier to visualize. But it can be many more sources, especially when testing. And the point is that by allocating your spend in a perfect balance that reflects your marketing strategy, you're actually able to achieve multiple KPIs. It is also equally important to align your creatives based on each source's KPIs. At Badoo, we've got an amazing in-house design team that is always working hard to support us with the creation of assets, especially adapting these assets for each source. For instance, if you're promoting your app on a video network where you can find a highly engaged audience who are more likely to convert into users and possibly into payers, promote your app with a video that feels relatable. In terms of driving female registrations, we've seen, for instance, that banners showing a couple tends to perform quite well. For a CPI influencer network, using user-generated content is key. And the traditional 320 times 50 mobile banner is always very strong in driving volumes. So now, challenges. We're all aware of the fraud challenges that we face, and I know marketers and networks are doing an incredible job in fighting against it. Also, when testing third-party networks, that means there is possibly a longer onboarding process involved compared to one-time setup platforms like Google or Facebook. You possibly need to go through integration process, legal negotiations, and long testing process while collecting data over and over every time you start with a new test. Despite all the changes marketers might face, third-party networks provide a great variety of sources that will help you achieve multiple targets and be present at different stages of the user journey. That's why I do encourage marketers to explore beyond paid social and search. Thank you. Now we've
There we
got
go.
some.
Yeah, we got some. I don't know if you've got the. Can you see them now? Can you see the questions, or do you want me to read them out? I can read them out if you like.
Chat, yes.
Yeah, but not the chat. The Q&A box is the one you need. I'll maybe read them out. One question from an honest attendee. Do you see a seasonal dip? I guess that's based on the graphs you saw earlier in September.
Sorry, I see here.
September, October. If so, why is this?
Why is this?
Yeah. Why is there a dip in September, October?
Oh, okay. Let me quickly have a look.
Yeah. I suppose it's on a couple of those.
In retention, probably there was a decrease in spend in one of the major drivers of retention. So actually we can see in spend, there was a decrease here. Obviously we see it as a trend, so it's more of a very steady trend throughout the year, but we can see that there is actually a decrease of spend. So I'm sure that's what happened. So the major driver of one-day retained users, decreased spend for internal reasons, yeah.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, leading up to a peak around sort of Christmas, New Year with dating or summer. Got it. And so what about the KPIs around male and female? You know, is there an exact goal? How do you calculate that?
So every dating app, they have their own goal in terms of, we can't really disclose what's the exact metric for each.
Got it. And when you're using these third-party networks, what sort of retention do you see after one day? You know, it's how good is retention? I guess you can see that in the graph. It's not an absolute number, but what is the retention like after one day using third-party network? What sort of ratios are you looking?
So I would say it tends to be slightly lower than platforms like paid social and search, although I've seen very good networks doing a great job also, especially if you're optimizing towards that event. So we're passing back that event for them to be able to optimize towards that metric. So I would say it's higher than 60%, but yeah, it depends on the cases.
Got it. And this is a good question from Naveen, I think from Facebook. Maybe he's got a ulterior motive here, but he's saying, how do you tackle fraud and brand safety when using third-party channels?
So we use AppsFlyer as our MMP, and they offer a great solution. It's Protect 360. I would highly recommend it, but also our developers, we have an amazing in-house team who has developed our own tool, anti-fraud detection tool, and yes, we use that, and it's quite impressive the job they did.
Got it. And a question from Max Finale. I think that's Max from Riddle. Hello, Max. Great to see you. How did you adjust your UA strategy given the current the C word? Do you see volumes going down in dating?
Oh, the C word. So it's still quite early stages to see any clear trend. Now the thing is that every day seems like a weekend. So it has changed a little bit the dynamic of how we see the spikes. But however, it's still not enough time to say if we've seen a decline or an increase in terms of registrations or any other metric.
Got it. And Ole, hello Ole, says, which third-party network has been the most successful for Badoo? I guess your view of third-party, it covers influencers, it covers a whole lot of stuff. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I can't really name exactly one network, but I would say that programmatic is really good in driving volumes. But my whole presentation is to encourage you to explore beyond paid social search and also programmatic, because third-party networks offer multiple sources and ways of reaching out your audience. But in terms of volumes, and obviously it's a more developed channel in the third-party networks world, programmatic is always a great solution to start with.
Got it. Let me see. So there's quite a few questions on, like, asking you which networks, which particular networks, which is the good ones, but you've kind of covered that. But Michael from in Moby says, Solange, very interesting. How do you choose your sources, and typically how many do you test at one time?
How do I treat my sources?
How do you choose? So you're saying, okay, test and learn, and not going to recommend them, but how do you choose them, and how many are you testing at any one point?
So I think there are partners offering amazing solutions at the moment. What I focus on is trying to find a differentiator, something that makes them unique. So I try to understand what's their USP, especially because we want to find new sources, so new ways to reaching out our audiences. And also because we're promoting our app in 190 countries, I try to make sure that what type of inventory they have available, what's the volume, the traffics, what they're doing to fight fraud, because that's what everyone should be doing. So that's key for me to when choosing a partner. That their technology, of course, and their capabilities to optimize. And the next question was, how many do I test at the same time?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, in an ideal world, we would be testing as many as we want, but unfortunately, obviously, there are like budget limitations. And at the same time, I would say we haven't tested more than 3 partners.
Got it. Kind of, you may have felt you've covered this, kind of related from U10. How do you choose a third-party channel? Are there any standard rules for you to choose a new channel? Is there anything like you use to exclude or include? Do you have a framework, or is it more kind of, kind of fuzzy than that? Yeah.
I think it's relatively the same question as before.
Right. Okay, fine. Okay, yeah, I think we covered that then. So Martin Hudak, so he said, so you increased your KPIs by only picking the strong sources, but you didn't change the budget. So he's I guess he's asking you keep the budget flat and reallocate it versus throwing more budget in. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure if that's a question, but yes, that's the idea. So allocating your budget in a way that reflects your marketing strategy. So I'm going to allocate this much to this source that is optimizing towards this metric until the point of you find the right balance.
Just running to this third-party network, where can you find them? I think you've covered how to choose. Where do you find them? I mean, do you have a lot of inbound, or do you sort of, you through your network, or do you literally on, through going to event? How do you source new networks?
Well, on LinkedIn, I think, I do receive some messages, and I try to read all of them and respond as much as I can. It can be a bit challenging, but that's a good way for sure. I encourage you to reach out. I'll try to respond. And I also keep on top of AppsFlyer Index to understand what sources are performing the best. And any it can be recommended by a colleague. Yeah, I think that that's mainly how we find them.
Got it. And Pierre is asking, in terms of the programmatic, which are you using a DSP or are you doing stuff in house? You know, how are you managing the buying on programmatic?
We're doing both. We have managed DSP and self-serve. Currently testing. I can't really say which one is performing better, but I think testing in-house is always a good solution, and I do encourage to go for it and explore it. And that way you can also understand a little bit more what your partner who's managing it for you is doing. So yeah, testing both, I think it's a great idea.
And Bola is asking, what about your own sort of first-party data? Are you using that with the third-party ad networks in any way? And do you see any uplift from activating that?
Sorry, not sure I
Yeah, he
understand.
says, do you activate and manage your first-party data on third ad networks? I don't know if you're talking about your, you know, uh, okay, well, we'll skip that one on then. Okay, so okay, there's a lot of questions here, 37 questions. Okay, so a lot of people talked about asking about the fraud tools. I think you mentioned AppsFly 360. What about third-party compliance solutions, Scalar, DataVisa? Do they deliver better results? Yeah. Let me see this. Okay, here's a good question. What's the fraud ratio you see on third party overall? Are you saying that you've basically eliminated it, or is there a certain amount that you still think gets through? Or
The ratio, which one? Sorry.
it said, what is the fraud ratio you see on third party overall?
Fourth ratio.
Fraud.
Oh, fraud.
Yeah,
Sorry. Um. Well, because we have our own tool. Yeah, it's like
you're
we have
managing
our
to
own
block it. Yeah.
internal metrics
Mm.
to identify it. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to
Okay,
respond
great.
back.
And this, I think, let me see. A lot of people want your recommendations for fraud things and for third-party networks. I think you should maybe offer your services as a consultant. Yeah,
No,
maybe
no.
they
But
can they can
what
grab you
I
in the.
yeah. No, I'm happy.
Yeah,
People can message me on
great,
LinkedIn.
great,
Their marketers interested in knowing
great,
a little bit more about
right,
third-party network. Feel free to message me,
right.
and I can tell you some names.
Normally we would go for lunch or coffee, or have
I
the
know.
evening event, and they'd be able to get all this information out of you. So we can't do that today. Um,
I would
well,
love that. Next time.
great. Well, that was really interesting. Solange really brought something new to the table, and I hope we can do it. I really appreciate you taking part in these. When you've got all these other things to do, and you're really busy trying to work from home, and really appreciate that. And it was a really good talk, and it's great to have something like a bit different. And I'd love to like dig into this a bit further, maybe into one of these specific areas like influencer, or one of these, even drill down a bit further. That was really great. So please, everyone, give Solange a big thank you, and for the last talk of the day. And I hope you've all had a good day today. We'll see you tomorrow for more content and workshops, and also next week. But thanks a lot. All right.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, James. Bye.